Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Cooper. I really appreciate you taking the time to look at my application and review this video. I'm excited to share a little bit more about myself so that you can get to know me a little bit better as an applicant. I currently serve as a tennis professional at Athens Country Club in Athens, Georgia, where I head up our junior advanced program. And I've been in this role since 2024, working with juniors and parents alike in order to run tournaments and establish clinics and lessons and advance our program through marketing and other means. I graduated in 2024 from the University of Mary Washington. I earned a degree in biomedical sciences and a minor degree in neurobiology. During my time there, I played on the varsity tennis team for all 4 years, 2 of which I served in a leadership role on the team. As well, at the University of Mary Washington, I was also an independent research student with one of our biology professors. I worked specifically with bacteriophages, which are viruses that infect bacteria. And we worked with those as alternatives to current antibiotics. And I served in that for 2 semesters. I'm really excited to get to just tell you a little bit more about myself and answer the questions as we go on through this virtual interview. Thank you so much for your time. Motivation for becoming a physical therapist. So we can kind of start from the beginning on where this all began for me. I originally was a pre-medical student in college and thought that was the path that I would end up taking. I shadowed in family practice, pediatrics, general surgery, orthopedics, all the different kinds of specialties, and really did not find anything that resonated well with me. While I liked the learning, the education, the medical side, working one-on-one with patients, I really just could not see myself in the future in any of these roles. And so when I got offered a job to coach tennis, I took it and came to really enjoy my current role, working with students, working with adults, one-on-one, being personable, and just helping them with their goals on the tennis court. And it wasn't until I was working with one of my current lessons that it was an older lady, retired, and she had come to me once a week for a couple of months before she suffered a debilitating foot injury. And she really had a passion for tennis. She loved it. It was a way for her to express herself, for her to have freedom of mobility, freedom of choice, freedom of, just being able to do what she wanted and take control of her life. And, when she suffered this foot injury, she tried to push through, and eventually she had to stop and go to physical therapy. And, she would come in fairly often while she was going through all of this and just kind of explain how excited she was that, she would be right back out on the court. She'd be able to drive soon. And I got really excited. And I was thinking, wow, I would love to be a part of something like that. I would love to be in a role where, I can help patients, I can help people regain their freedom, regain their movement, regain their mobility. And I got really excited about that. So I came home. I told my fiance at the time that I was really excited and I was going to go shadow physical therapy. So I went over, found a physical therapist, shadowed, came home, and immediately prepared my application because I was so confident that this was the next career step for me. It combines my interest of medicine, it combines my interest of academics, of working with people one-on-one, of helping, and I'm really, really excited to have found a field that so well aligns with what I want to do and my desires and my passions in life. And I know that this next step is the right career move for me. And I'm really excited to hopefully do that through Harrisburg University. Thank you. Understanding of diversity. So I think it'll be easiest for me to talk about this if I kind of tell a story about what this kind of means to me. And so I grew up in a small town in South Georgia called Thomasville, and I spent a lot of time shadowing in a pediatric office in Cairo, Georgia, which is a nearby town. And a lot of the patient population in that town is Central American. And I remember one day I walked into a room with the physician, and the patients in the room were of Central American descent and did not speak any English. And when we walked in the room, she being a white doctor, I being a white man, you could just kind of feel that the patients were a little uncomfortable with, not only the language barrier, but also a cultural barrier, and not feeling completely comfortable in the situation. And so the physician called in a nurse who acted as a translator and also was from Central American background. And when she walked in, immediately the patients relaxed. They were, very forthcoming with, the issues they were having with their daughter, in terms of, her not feeling well, and you could just tell that they were put at ease the moment that nurse had walked in. And so I think it's not just about understanding, that diversity matters, right? Of course, other perspectives, other ideas, those are super important to have in a workspace, right? But I think in healthcare, it's unique because it's not just about putting the workspace at ease, right? Introducing other perspectives into a workspace. It's about having those perspectives already present in the workspace. So that way, when someone comes in from a different background, they feel comfortable, right? They can explain their pain. They can explain their discomfort. They can talk more openly, more freely, right? Whether that be a cultural barrier, whether that be a difference in, socioeconomic background, whether that be a difference in, linguistic background, right? All of those things, right? We need to include in our offices and in our workspaces so that when our patients walk in, right? So that when, eventually patients walk in, that is already set up and patients are comfortable and ready to operate and feel like they can open up about their own background, themselves, and really, explain those things to the attending healthcare provider. Social justice and healthcare. So I have a unique experience with social justice in healthcare. I spent 21 years traveling for a week to New Orleans to sit and meet with the unhoused underneath bridges. Groups of us would go out and we would sit down with individual unhoused persons and just meet with them about individual needs, individual desires, listen to them, listen to their stories, their backgrounds, and we would try to meet individual needs on an individual basis. Meaning, for example, we met one man who talked to us for a little while and said that he wanted to send a letter to his daughter. So we went over to the post office. We were able to get stamps and postage, come back, watch him write his letter, put it in the envelope, and send it to his daughter. And so this was the kind of service that we were able to perform. And what you very quickly realize when you're speaking over and over again with the unhoused is just how difficult it is to receive healthcare, individual healthcare, right? And so you'll have large groups that will come out and volunteer and healthcare providers, and they'll do sweeping exams for the homeless. But they don't get the individual care that they really need. They aren't sat with and listened to on their specific needs and desires because a lot of them lack either access to transportation to medical facilities. They lack phones to communicate with those medical facilities. They can't schedule their own appointments. A lot of them don't have an identification, and it makes the entire healthcare system very, very difficult for them to navigate. And I think this applies to not only just the homeless, but to society at large, right? When you are in an area where you are, very, very far from healthcare services, and you do not have access to transportation, you do not have access to the free time to ask off from work, to leave your kids somewhere with somebody else, you don't have access to those things, you are going to lack access to care. And so we as, future healthcare providers have to bridge that access gap, right? That means that we cannot just stay where we are, right? We have to go out and seek and find these groups that are isolated from healthcare, right? We have to go out and find them and offer aid to them. When I was shadowing in a pediatric clinic, there was a mom who walked 3 hours across town in the rain with her kids in order to receive care. This was when I was in Thomasville. I was shadowing, soaking wet, walks in the door. She had walked 3 hours with her kids, right? We cannot expect all of our patients, all of everyone who is in society to have equal access to care. And so therefore, as healthcare providers, we have to go to them. We have to go into the communities. We have to go into the areas where there is help needed. And we need to cater individual plans for individuals in order to advocate for them, in order to have that, in order to give them the social justice that they deserve. And so this is one area where I feel particularly passionate about. And as a future healthcare provider, I hope to go forward and go and find out and seek out these communities and areas where healthcare and is harder to access and services are more difficult to obtain. Barriers to healthcare. So this will be best discussed through my experience abroad in Guatemala and my understanding that came from that. So one summer I had the privilege of living abroad in Guatemala with a host family, and there I was able to work and shadow with local physical therapists and local physicians. And I learned a lot while I was there. And there was one particular day where I was shadowing with a local physician, and a group of American doctors had come into the village to offer colonoscopy treatments. And this was really excellent volunteer work because the colonoscopies were really needed in this area, and the cost was just too high without these physicians here to volunteer. And so I got to shadow one of the American doctors who walked into a room with a man who clearly needed and wanted a colonoscopy and had been just suffering for many years because he couldn't afford one. And I was able to pick up on a couple of things that I think the physician I was with wasn't able to, because I had a better understanding of the culture. So in that particular culture, it's very uncommon for patients to come forward with direct information, right? To tell you exactly what they think, to tell you exactly what they want, to advocate for themselves. And that, right? It's not super common, and a lot of times you have to sit. A lot of the physicians I work with would sit a long time before the patient would finally open up about what they truly needed or wanted in a situation. And the physician sat there, and she really had issues understanding that he couldn't afford it without her, and he couldn't come back any other time, and he really needed to schedule this while they were in town. And it obviously was not her intention to deny this man care or to not provide him the right care, but she just simply misunderstood him because he wasn't providing the information that she thought he would have. And I think this is where a lot of barriers to healthcare start with, right? We can talk about economic barriers. We can talk about socioeconomic barriers. We can talk about linguistic barriers. But a lot of it comes from a misunderstanding of somebody else's perspective, of someone else's background, right? This kind of thing happens starting at the cultural level. And it really made me open my eyes to understand that as a future healthcare worker, I need to make sure that I am listening to my patients, understanding their background in order to properly advocate for them. And that's something that I'm going to take forward as I eventually become a future healthcare provider. Thank you so much for your time today in considering my application. I hope that you learned a little bit more about me and my passion for the physical therapy program. I'm really interested in physical therapy, and I know that this is the right decision for me in my career. My ultimate dream is to open up my own gym with my wife and run it for patients in which we can advocate for individual patients on individual needs based on individual backgrounds. This career would really combine my love of learning, my strong academic background, as well as my love for helping people and being personal one-on-one with people in a clinical setting. I'm really excited for this opportunity and hope that you'll seriously consider my application and allowing me to join you guys in the coming semester. Thank you again so much for your time. I hope to hear from you soon. It's great meeting you all. Thank you.